If we liked you, you weren't shot, and we go to any length to shoot whomever disliked you. If you were not liked, you were hunted, if necessary, and shot, period. Instantaneous communication. That's all I had known for years. Words, I thought, could never take the place of guns to communicate like or dislike. But here I was, totally absorbed in the spoken words of Muhammad and Brown. Each emotional lash was tantamount to the resounding echo of gunfire. But unlike gunfire, no one was killed. This was my first encounter with brothers who could kill with words. Their words were not mere talk either. Action followed in the wake of their theories, and their presence demanded respect long before their words were spoken. On Monday night, we fell to Islamic services to find another Muslim there. In appearance, this cat was totally out of sync with the Muslims we had known. First of all, he had a jerry curl, which was dripping juice onto his collar and the shoulders of his members only jacket, which was black and collarless. He wore some gray double knit slacks and black penny loafers. Standing approximately 5 feet 4 inches and weighing a meager 120 pounds, he was the opposite of Muhammad. As soon as we had taken in his dress and fried hair dripping nuclear waste, we knew he had been undermined. "Where's Muhammad at?" I asked, walking up on him. "Where's Muhammad at?" I asked, walking up on him. "Oh, well," he began stammering, obviously intimidated by my size. Muhammad was suspended by the California Department of Corrections Youth Board and restricted from entering the institution until further notice. "What? Sorry." "What? Sorry, fellas, but sorry. Yes, you see, man, we want Muhammad. You don't even look like no real Muslim. Where you from? Who sent you?" Please, he said, raising both hands like a jack victim. "If y'all sit down, I will explain everything to you. Please, just have a seat." We moved slowly and reluctantly to our seats, murmuring, "Fuck that, and this dude is fake," under our breath. Once we were seated, it was apparent that the Muslim felt even more intimidated by standing in front of 80 irate youths. Once we were seated, it was apparent that the Muslim felt even more intimidated by standing in front of 80 irate youths demanding an explanation for the sudden removal of our teacher. He began with "Assalamu alaikum," and not one of us responded with "Wa alaikum assalam." Why should we? He wanted us to be peaceful with him, but we had no intention of bidding him peace until a full explanation was brought forward about the removal of Muhammad Abdullah. The Muslim extracted a white handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the sweat mixed with jerry curl juice from his brow. "I am George Muhammad. I have been sent by the American Muslim Mission. My job is not to teach you revolution, but al-Islam. Mr. Muhammad Abdullah was a fomenter of violence and separating. He was..." "Man, fuck you," came a voice from the back, immediately followed by a balled up piece of paper. "We live in violence," said LC, one of the original members of the services before we came. "Always have, and by the definition of ghetto, we already live in separation. Muhammad did not teach us violence and separation. He taught us self-defense and nationalism. And anyway, al-Islam teaches us, by way of the Holy Quran, that it is our duty as Muslims to fight oppression everywhere it assaults in this world." "Nah, ain't no yes, but see, cause you ain't right. I heard Muhammad talk about you one day. Yeah, he taught us about how you be looking like us, talking like us, and living like us, but all the time, you be working with the oppressor. Yeah, we already up on you. Your name ain't no George Muhammad, your name Uncle Tom." "Get that motherfucker," yelled someone to the left of me, and we all rose and began to advance on Tom, who stood bug-eyed and motionless. Just before he was seized, the doors to the chapel burst open, and staff in full riot gear came rushing in to his rescue. We were all sent back to our cells and put on CTQ, confined to quarters, during which time I received a letter from Muhammad. His letter was my first lesson in counterintelligence activity. The pig sent the Negro preacher to gather intelligence on me. He climbed in the air conditioning vent and taped several of our services. He has always been our worst enemy. Unfortunately, for the Uncle Tom is so hard to detect amongst us. I will not be coming back to YTS for some time, if ever. but I will always stay in contact with you. Inshallah, don't be deceived by those who look like us but think like the oppressor. I was stung by the reality of Muhammad's letter, by the prophecy of his "don't be deceived by those who look like us," when just this week I had witnessed the undermining of our services by the institution. I passed Muhammad's letter around for those who were responsible for informing their troops. For those who had a problem reading, I took it upon myself to explain what had happened. Attendance at Islamic services under the guidance of Uncle Tom fell off completely. No one attended, so Tom packed up and left. Because of what we found out about Reverend Jackson spying on us, no one attended his services either. As for the staff bursting in and rescuing the Uncle Tom, he was wired. I later found out the staff had anticipated such a response. My consciousness about the larger enemy was being raised bit by bit. Why wouldn't someone want us to learn about who we really were? Is our knowledge of self so threatening that such measures as sending a Christian preacher into our air conduit are necessary to hinder its attainment? Muhammad and I kept in contact, and he sent me a lot of literature, mostly Islamic, but always Afrocentric. The banging mentality was still uppermost in my mind, as demonstrated in my everyday relations with most people. But questions of right or wrong now came to my mind immediately after every action I took. Muhammad had made a tremendous difference in my life that was barely noticeable then, but cannot be overlooked today. My time in YTS after the closing of Islamic services continued in a fashion characteristic of prison life. To occupy my time, I had structured a daily routine that gave me little opportunity to be blue about confinement. It was 1983 and I wanted to make a statement for the set somehow, some way. But I didn't want to do it in a physical manner, which seemed uncharacteristic of me. Actually, it was uncharacteristic of Monster. Diamond, Superman, and I decided to get tattoos for 1983. I wanted mine on my neck in clear view for all to see. This I knew would be a status symbol, as relatively few new Africans had tattoos on their necks at the time. Today it's hard to find a banger whose neck isn't written on, advertising his or her particular allegiance. In 1983, it was unpopular to have your set written across your neck, but hell, was I into this for popularity or was I committed for life? My all-out commitment for life would, if I lived long enough, bring about popularity as I was already experiencing. But with A-Trade written across my neck, it would be an everlasting bond. In Black August 1983, I had the tattoo put on my neck. Superman had his mother's name put on his neck, and Diamond had some shading done on his back. Against the lightness of my skin and the thickness of my neck, the tattoo stood out as a beaming testimonial of my lifelong commitment to the hood. One staff member said something adverse about it, but most people didn't care. I felt content about it, and to me, that's all that mattered. Not long after I received the tattoo, I got more depressing news from the hood. C-Ball, who had been in the hood for years, was shot and killed by Trey Stone. From what I was able to gather, it was over a cassette tape stolen out of C-Ball's car. But after doing a bit more research, I uncovered a possible link in a relationship with a female whose brother was from the hood. It was my understanding that C-Ball was jealous of Stone's flirtations with the female and that he'd only used the tape issue as camouflage. Supposedly, Stone was confronted on the north side by C-Ball, who was armed with a .32 caliber revolver, as Stone had grown too large for C-Ball to fight. When C-Ball asked after his missing tape, Stone became belligerent. C-Ball then fired one round at point-blank range into Stone's torso. Stone fell to the ground and said, "Oh, cuz, he shot me," as if he could not believe it. He died thereafter. C-Ball turned himself in and received 8 years. Now the debate was about what to do with C-Ball. Trey Stone was the highest level of combat soldier and was loved deeply by those whom he fought for and beside. C-Ball, while not a combat soldier, had been in service for the set for years, much longer than Stone. Those of us in the combat wing who favored Stone were calling for an on-site execution of C-Ball, while the voices of the traditionalists in their armchair posture rang just as loudly for the forgiveness of C-Ball for slaying Trey Stone the bully. The set remained divided over this for quite some time. Even today, there are those on both poles of the issue still debating who's right and what's wrong. I have let it rest. Stone was 18 years old. I was paroled out of YTS on March 7, 1984. Mom and Tamu were there to pick me up. Little bro and I had been at YTS for 1 year.